Who doesn't love a good old bit of lore? Reading into the wonderfully creative designs that developers conjure up can change the plot of entire games. With bizarro monsters that are terrifying not only because of the way they look, but because of what they represent. Once you know the secrets lurking behind the weird masses of flesh and fur, you'll never view them in the same way ever again. Or at least that's what my first boyfriend told me. Lucky for you, if you liked our previous videos on scary monsters and Silent Hill nasties, I'm here with a whole new set of baddies ready to be deconstructed. So sharpen your stakes and brew your decoctions, as I'm Ash from WhatCulture Gaming, and these are 8 of the weirdest video game enemies and what they represent. 8. The Villagers, the Evil Within. Although at first glance the regular enemies of the Evil Within, who are deformed villagers who torment Sebastian on his nightmarish journey, could be perceived as being simple derivative zombies, the reason for their monstrous appearance is actually rooted in a traumatic story twist. Everything that happens in the title's world is a result of Ruvik, a psychopathic serial killer letting his twisted subconscious go wild to conjure up a horrific hellscape, and these deformed enemies represent a group from his past. As a child, Ruvik and his sister were caught in a barn that was burned down by a nearby farmer, with the latter dying and the former having every inch of his body scorched as a result. Ruvik relives this traumatic moment by bringing the villagers to life to haunt Sebastian, with their twisted, inhuman appearance reflecting the way he saw his attackers as inherently evil beings, rather than as just bad people. While they look like generic zombies then, they're actually how the villagers were seen in the antagonist's nightmares, brought to life to haunt yours. 7. Asphyxia, Silent Hill Homecoming. The twisted manifestation of Nora Holloway's tragic death at the hands of her own mother, the monstrous Asphyxia is a caterpillar-like creature made up almost entirely of arms, animated by the wrathful spirit of a murdered child. The hungry version ain't got nothing on this girl. With hands sprouting out of her neck, the design of this boss is entirely based around Nora's strangulation by her mother. And the only way you can actually defeat the monster is to pry away the fingers from her throat and finally allow her to breathe. Going even further, the caterpillar influence is taken directly from Nora's favourite book, Alice in Wonderland, bastardising something she once loved as a child. The whole design reflects the loss of Nora's innocence and her childhood being forever tarnished at the hands of a loved one, and boy, is the creepy end result enough to keep you up at night. 6. Colossi, Shadow of the Colossus. The Colossi in Shadow of the Colossus are a varied bunch. With 16 entities spread throughout the Forbidden Land ready to be taken down by Wanda, there's a mix of creatures and appearances you'll face up against during your time in the game. These creatures are actually amalgamations of mythology brought to life though, representing legends of old in staggering enormity. Interestingly enough, the Latin names of these colossi tend to correlate with their aesthetics. For example, the first monster Valus is named Minotaurus Colossus, a giant minotaur if you will. Valus also could be derived from the verb valere, meaning to be strong. And then Phaedra, a horse-like colossi, is named Equus Bellator Apex in Latin, which translates to the top warrior horse. Phaedra is also the name of the wife of Theseus in Greek mythology, who fell in love with Hippolytus, was rejected, and then hanged herself. Poor old Hippo then suffered a fatal chariot crash, of course pulled by, horses. Each of the stone giants in the game have similar name and appearance-based links, but what does this actually mean? Well, you can apply the mythology to defeating the creatures themselves. The Minotaur was slain with the sword of Aegeus, similar in its specialty to the ancient sword Wanda utilises as a Colossus killing machine and an introduction point to the weapon itself. Killing Phaedra comes from tricking the beast into not paying attention to where you actually are, a Trojan horse, if you will. 5. Everywoman, Silent Hill 2. Although never officially confirmed, it's heavily hinted at that the monsters of the Silent Hill series are a manifestation of the protagonist's deepest fears and anxieties, with the third game indicating that the town changes depending on who's visiting. Silent Hill 2 is perhaps the series' most thematically coherent installment though, with every enemy in the game drawing on main character James's sexual frustration and guilt he felt during the time caring for his terminally ill wife, Mary. All the female enemies in the game reflect this theme, with the seductive faceless nurses perhaps being the most obvious metaphor for James's lust for the people treating his dying wife, and the punishment he then craved for having those naughty thoughts. Just about everyone, monster or not, can be read as a manifestation of these sexual hang-ups. Thank God, what would we do without sexual hang-ups? Pyramid Head dominates the monsters through sexual force. Maria is Mary's mirror image and the perfect, sexy wife he always wanted, while the mannequins are literally just objectified female body parts attempting to torture James the best they can. If you wanted a game with angry, scary titties, this is the game with angry, scary titties. That is just a brief overview too. Even Freud would only have been able to scratch the surface of this survival horror sequel. 4. Spriggans, The Elder Scrolls. A mainstay of the Elder Scrolls series, Spriggans are found primarily in the dense forest of Bethesda's RPGs, with Skyrim's version of the enemy being particularly deadly. Using elemental attacks, the tree-like creatures appear to have sprouted from the very world itself, so it can be confusing as to why these strangely majestic monsters are so aggressive in their pursuit of the player. Unlike some of the other enemies, Spriggans can't be reasoned with, but there is a good reason why. They're a manifestation of Mother Earth getting revenge for how the land has been treated. Tapping into myths that cast this elemental being as an all-encompassing entity attempting to preserve the natural order, everything from the woodland theme to the female physique evokes classic interpretations of Mother Nature. It's not exactly subtle in its symbolism, but it colours the powerful enemies in a rather sympathetic light that makes you feel a bit guilty, a little bit, for cutting so many of them down. 3. Xenomorph, Alien Isolation. Back to the sexy stuff, eh? Obviously, the Xenomorph was taken from the Alien movie franchise before it came over to the gaming realm, and it's been skulking across our screens one way or another for decades until winding up in the latest franchise installment, which is, of course, Isolation. Designed by none other than H.R. Giger himself, the creature was always going to be influenced by sexuality, as much of the artist's work is. Lucky for us then, this is what led us to being hunted down by a giant vinyl-looking penis face with a tiny penis that also pops out of its mouth. Because is there anything really scarier than a flaccid dick flopping about at any given moment? No, there isn't. The alien is an amalgamation of sex and death, representative of phallic insecurities as well as female monstrosity. Amanda fleeing this sexual deviant throughout Isolation is a reflection of Freudian fears. Just about any way you look on the alien, and in the original movie Nostromo itself, you'll be able to draw connotations between our grotty bits and how the alien universe has come together. You just might not want to. 2. The Crones of Crookback Bog, The Witcher 3. Which means something entirely different in the Northern Realms, it would seem, as the Crones of Crookback Bog prove instantly. Worlds away from the classic depiction of black cats and green skin, the Ladies of the Wood aren't as womanly as the name would suggest, instead taking on the form of 3 strangely mutated creatures rather than sexy broom wielders. Whilst their quite repulsive appearance is in line with the creatures of The Witcher, the influence can be drawn back through classic fairy tales and other such stories, like Shakespeare's Macbeth, which appears in their bestiary entry. In fact, there's plenty of influences that have been drawn together, with each crone representing a type of legend, bringing to life the gory whispers of our own legends in terrifying gameplay reality. First, there's the Brewess, a giant pink and fleshy monster with a locked basket for a face, whose link to household utensils round her waist and penchant for cooking human flesh is derivative of Baba Yaga, a morally ambiguous cannibal from Eastern European folklore. Then there's the Wispess, an old crone with a bag of bloody limbs round her waist, ears round her neck, and a face covered with a cross-hatcheted cloth. She's the oldest sister, able to hear everything that happens in the woods, and it isn't dissimilar to the crone of the Hecate sisters, who was the wise and knowing of the trio. And lastly, there's the Weavess, a 4-legged old woman with a pointed hat and one eye replaced with a tryptophobic nightmare. Like the Roman and Greek Fates and Norse Norns, she can weave human hair into magic tapestries, similar to the threads of fate that the latter craft with. 1. Bed of Chaos, Dark Souls. Now, bear with me on this one as I try to explain some Dark Souls lore that absolutely fries my brain. The Bed of Chaos is one of the late game bosses that appears in Izalith, and I really want to say Osgiliath, so please forgive me if I do. She's a giant weird tendrily tree lady with a bug parasite living inside her. According to the plot, this creature was once the Witch of Izalith, a pyromancer that helped kill the everlasting dragons that used to rule over the land. With them gone, the fire of the First Flame, aka an era of light that brought power to the gods, was ushered in, but after an unknown time, it began to die. The Witch of Izalith tried to counteract this by creating a new fire of her own. This didn't work, and the magic went wrong, turning her into a mutated creature and bringing chaos, monsters, and death in the wake of her spellcasting instead, as well as a really boss fight. Had to be said, my guys. Now doomed to look like the very archtree she destroyed when battling with the dragons, her burning organic appearance is representative of the chaotic nightmare she's responsible for cursing the land with. Her strange tendrils and flaming appendages are a mockery of the life and light she used to give back to the world, instead condemning her to a fiery underworld that produces demons in the stead of anything wholesome. She really is the literal bed of chaos, the conception point of all things evil, whether willing or not. And that's our list. What weird and wonderful creatures would you like to hear about? Let me know in the comments section below, and maybe we can do another one of these. As always, I've been the annoying gingerbread woman Ash, and this has been WhatCulture Gaming. Don't forget to like, share, sacrifice your firstborn, and subscribe to see more from us. Thanks for watching.